use explicit violence in your writings?
It's what I do, is one answer. I write horror fiction. There is a kind of curiosity that we have as human beings about our life processes. One of our last life processes is death. It's a legitimate subject for curiosity. We shouldn't be ashamed that the macabre or the morbid exercises some fascination upon us. I tell it like it is. If it's there in my mind's eye, I put it on the page. And that seems to me to be a legitimate way to write.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Written in Red podcast. That is the Horror Reader and Writers podcast. We are here today to bring you a really kind of a path-following episode, launching off of our last one. I have a horrible idea. But before we get into the details of the episode, we're just going to kind of remind you of who the hosts of the show are. So I'm Aaron Beauregard, a co-host, and of such works as Yellow, Wedding Day Massacre, In the Hands of the Heathens, and many others. And we got Daniel J. Volpe.
Hey everyone, Daniel J. Volpe here. My books that I have out right now, Billy Silver, Talia, Awaken in Blood. And by the time this comes out, A Gift of Death, my newest book from D&T Publishing, should be out. So check that out.
And Carver Pike.
Hey everybody, I'm Carver Pike.
God damn it, Carver.
Author of books like My Parasitic Head Lice Story, Scalp, Grad Night, Slaughterbox, the whole Diablo Snuff series. Working on The Maddening, should have that out pretty soon.
Crabs.
And Roland Bursey Jr.
Hey everybody, Roland Bursey Jr., author of Payback is a Witch, Pre-Thanksgiving Stress Disorder, which should be out in November as a standalone and an audiobook, and Unvortion, and working on 2 more right now that I'll just keep a secret for now.
Hell yeah.
Oh, shit.
Man of secrets.
All right, guys. Well, we got a lot to get into today. This may be another 2-part episode, depending on kind of how far down the rabbit hole we go with time here. But, I think initially, really, I would say the first full launch episode was kind of Can I Write, where we're exploring the idea of, do I want to write? Should I write? What should I write? That sort of thing. And then in the last couple of episodes, I Have a Horrible Idea, part 1 and 2, which those were really going over sort of some of the stuff before we actually get into the writing process itself. Like, what's the length, formatting, what's the point of my story? Just some very general ideas like that. What applications should I use? So now that we've wrapped up sort of on that preliminary sort of stuff to consider, we're going to be diving into a pool of blood today. You guys like swimming? Any swimmers here?
I'm an
In a
avid
pool
swimmer.
of blood? Yes.
Yeah, a little.
Yeah.
Roland's like, is there some fetuses in that shit too?
Yeah, let me get them fetuses.
I'm diving in.
Yeah, it's bobbing for fetuses.
We should make that a Halloween game.
Right?
That sounds normal.
So, but really, what we mean is obviously we're diving into the writing process, right? We got our story straight now. We sort of have a general idea of what it should look like, or, where it's going, right? And now we're going to, it's time to get writing. And so these questions, well, they're not really questions, I suppose. There's more topic points. Some of them are questions, but we're going to kind of hit a few different topic points and have a group discussion. And yeah, I think this should be pretty interesting, because this is the first time we're actually really getting into the writing aspect of it. But before we do that, before we get into that, we obviously have our weekly spotlight, which Daniel's going to be covering this week. So Daniel, I'll let you take it from here, and then we'll head back and dive into the pool of blood after our spotlight.
I'm gonna do a cannonball into the fucking pool of blood. All right. So the author I kind of want to highlight this week, or for this episode instead of this week, is an awesome guy. Somebody that a fan of this, any fan of this show will probably recognize him and his work, and that is John Wayne Comunale. He has put out a ton of books. Most of them are through Grindhouse, but he does have some through Death's Head Press. I think this was his first book that he put out through Grindhouse, Death Packs and Left Hand Paths. This was actually a Christmas present, which I really enjoyed. This is a good short novella length story that deals with the making pacts with the devil, or demons, we'll say. Definitely a really cool book, and a good introductory work for anybody looking to get into his stuff. Just recently, I picked up Mage of the Hellmouth from him personally, so I got a nice signed copy with some cool drawings in there.
Oh,
and
nice.
Of course, he sent me some cool swag. I haven't gotten into this one yet, but as any fan of the show knows, I do like the fantasy stuff, so this seems like it's kind of right up my alley with the fantasy kind of horror. I also, from him, I purchased a copy of Scummer, another pretty cool looking book. This one's a little bit longer. This is just about 200 pages long, and again, he puts some cool shit. You know, he's a really talented artist. So that's the other thing I want to talk about with his stuff as well, is if you follow him on social media, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I think he's on Twitter, but I know he's on Instagram and Facebook. He always does really cool, unique art, and just recently he's gotten into audiobook narration. So I actually hired him recently. Him and I paired up, and he did the audiobook narration for my debut novella, Billy Silver, and it turned out great. I got to listen to it recently, and right now it's in the final stages of approval through ACX. So I'm hoping that'll be out soon. But yeah, definitely check him out. He's a super, super personable guy. He's always online. If you message him, he's not one of these guys that's too busy. He's always quick to respond. If you go on, I think his website is johnwayneisdead.com.
Mm-hmm.
So he has all his books for sale up there. It's really easy to get on there. If you want a signed copy, he sent these out to me immediately. You know, I hit the PayPal button, and within probably 12 hours, I had an email confirmation that the books were shipped. So, and again, when he did the audiobook narration, if anybody out there is looking for an audiobook narrator, you really can't find anyone better for him. He's reasonable. He works very fast, and he has a great voice and a great knack for this audiobook game. So I definitely look forward to seeing what else he can put out in the future. So that's my highlight of the episode. Does anybody are reading his stuff?
I haven't read any of his stuff, but I've seen he's funny as hell, man. They've got a podcast. He's with Christopher Triana doing that Vital Social Issues and stuff, I think, right? Is the name of their podcast. Yeah. That's pretty cool. They usually cover like horror movies and shit like that, and just basically whatever the hell they want to talk about.
Yeah, they're super I love listening to that show with them, because they're very kind of different types of styles. Because Chris Triana, if you listen to that show, he's almost like the dad, and John Wayne is kind of like that fucking like that teenage son that's just, you know, metal with long hair and just saying stupid shit. And they have such an awesome dynamic and a great show. And then I think he has a Patreon page as well, and he does another one I think called I think it's John Wayne Lied to You is his other one he does just for Patreon, I believe, and that's an exclusive one. So if anyone wants to check out some of his more exclusive stuff, check out his Patreon page. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but I'm sure if you put it into Patreon, you could definitely find it. And you know, hit him up for some art. He does cool art shit. He's always putting up like some.
Have you seen his booths at the signings and stuff? I mean, he's got the most colorful, like the wildest fucking booth.
It's amazing. He does a lot of like skeletons and stuff, and he's big into tarot cards, so he does a lot of tarot card stuff with that. And like Carver said, like he's got a lot of very, very bright, vibrant. I mean, you can look at the cover of like Scummer here. I mean, it's all like pastels and pink and green. Even the back is kind of like that, and even like Death Packs, same thing. You know,
nice.
It's kind of that really vibrant kind of
Yeah.
really stands out.
I was I think it was A Quiet Place, right? That was the name of the show that Regina and Jeremy are on. And he was on there too. And yeah, he's a cool dude. And I think, like you were saying, Carver, he does like a lot of fucking convention stuff. And I'm hoping that, you know, I'm gonna get out to some conventions this year too. I think he's doing the one in Jersey too.
He is,
which
we're
we're planning on going. So hopefully we can meet him in person. But yeah, he seems like a cool dude. On the show, he had some dice too. That he fucking that he makes. I guess he makes his own dice too. So it's all different kind of like weird little shit.
Nice.
When he released this book, Mage of the Hellmouth, I think he did like a promotional, because I think this kind of revolves around Dungeons and Dragons in a way. I think Mage, Roland, that's right up your alley.
I was about to say I'm going to get it as soon as we hang out.
Roland, go on his website right now and buy this book.
Oh, he got a sale right there.
I think he when he did this, I recall this coming out from Grindhouse, which is a great press, and I think he did some like promotional D20s. So Roland,
I was just gonna say, I love how Aaron throws the word "fucking" into sentences in the funniest places sometimes, man. He's like, he made these fucking dice. It's like he put them in his fucking hand and he fucking held them out to the screen and he fucking
jiggled them.
He fucked the dice. No.
Yeah, these fucking dice.
Tell him, Roland, they're not dice. They're fucking D20.
Yo, I don't want
to play D&D every weekend, so I'm definitely going to check it out.
Yeah,
you say
definitely.
He did Sinkhole too?
Yeah, he did the novella Sinkhole, and he has an audiobook narration that he does on his own of Sinkhole. He narrates Sinkhole and Death Packs. The Sinkhole narration is great. It's really a cool story. It's very interesting. If you guys have never read it, it's pretty much you got a sinkhole that appears in a guy's backyard after a heavy rainstorm, and there's a school bus that went missing in like the 50s, and bum, the guy finds it, and hilarity ensues. So it's a really cool story that he does, and he just has a really fast pace of writing, and he kind of almost reminds you a little bit of like Eli Roth with that throwing that black humor in there.
Oh yeah,
and some of that just that real like tongue in cheek. You're like, oh man, I can't believe he did this. Like in Death Packs and Left Hand Paths is full of that. Like it's a really like the main character to get his power from this demon in order for his sacrifice to count. He wears this necklace, and the necklace is a golden nugget of shit. But it has but it's like really descriptive. Like it has like corn in it, and it's like you see like the creases in it. So Aaron's getting a half chub thinking about it. So it's
torture scenes in yellow. I'm reading that now, and I'm like, oh fuck, man.
Yeah,
that gets pretty nasty. Did you guys ever see the Vice used to do magazines too. Before they became like a lot of the media and documentary stuff. And when I worked at Borders, Vice had a couple magazines there in the humor section. And in one of them, they had this dude that just ate only corn for like 3 weeks so that he could have the all corn shit. And like in the book, there was like a picture of it in black and white. It's just...
Do you guys remember like 6 years ago when Burger King released the Halloween Whopper and had the black bun, but it made your shit green? Yeah, that's true. It was definitely true. I can verify that. But yeah, people are weird. People like feces for some reason. I don't know. Whatever it is, but yeah. So we'll segue back to John Wayne and if you guys haven't checked out any of his stuff, check him out. Social media, Facebook, Instagram, his website, johnwayneisdead.com, I believe. And check out his books. They're cool shit. His audiobooks are great. His art is really unique and cool. So reach out to him. Just say hi and buy some fucking shit.
That's right. Nice.
Sounds good. Good pick. Well deserved. And I think now then that means we're about to dive into the pool of blood, right? So, let's start out with talking about keeping readers engaged. So, how do you guys keep a reader engaged in your story? Is there Is there anything in specific that you think about as you write to be like, like I've heard some people say like I forget who it was, to be honest with you, but I heard a rather well-known writer say that he would try to make that very last lines on every single page almost like a cliffhanger.
I was going to say that. Somebody said that. I read the same thing, or somebody told me that they do that. Yeah. Like the very last line, it just keeps the reader holding on until like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? So it makes them want to move forward to the next chapter to see what's going to happen.
That sounds exhausting though. Like how can you embed a cliffhanger onto every fucking page? But I guess if like your writing is, engaging in general, it doesn't necessarily have to be like a cliffhanger, right? But
I would say even like I'm reading The Deep right now by Nick Cutter, and one thing I'm loving about it is the chapters are so short that I'm not intimidated to start the next chapter. Like, when you're kind of tired and you're reading and you're just like, you look ahead sometimes and you're like, fuck that. I'm not going to.
Oh, 100%. I do every night.
That chapter, I'm just not even going to start it. The Deep is the first book I think I've read where like the chapters sometimes are a page, maybe a page and a half.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, so like it keeps me kind of reading. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. And then I get done with that one. I'm like, how much to the next chapter? Oh, I can do 3 pages. It kind of keeps me going. Now, I haven't followed that advice. I mean, my chapters tend to be, I try to stick to around, really a chapter is going to be what it's got to be, but I try to keep them probably around 3,000 words is kind of what I go with. Once I start going past that, it's, I don't want them to be too long, but I'm kind of digging that short chapter thing. I might try and do that in the future because I think it's pretty cool.
That's like the James Patterson fucking model. If you're anything by James Patterson or the robot that writes for James Patterson, he has like 130 chapters in a 375-page book. And so I think with his books, it keeps people engaged and it gives people a sense of accomplishment because his books are probably 40,000 words, if that, but they're so long because the chapters are, like you said, they're a page and a half, maybe 2 pages. So it's you fly through it. And, I think that it works for him, obviously, because the guy's probably a fucking billionaire with the amount of books he's put out there. So,
well, with the age of short attention span, it's huge. It's hard enough to get people to sit down and read a fucking book. Never mind like actually like keep churning through it, especially if you have longer chapters. But I'm just fucking weird in the sense that like I don't know. I just end up writing whatever I feel is necessary for that chapter. Like you might see some of my chapters that are like 3 pages, 4 pages, and then there'll be some that are like 10 or 11. But then some books will be like chapters that are all on the longer side. But I think overall, I do tend to write shorter chapters. That's just kind of how it tends to pan out. But every once in a while, there will be some stuff on the longer side.
I remember when the first time I wrote, I think it was The Grindhouse when I first put it out. I wasn't thinking about lengths of chapters and stuff. I was just kind of writing and letting the chapters be what they must. And I think that book, I want to say it's like 70,000 words, and I think I had like 12 chapters in it or something like that.
Oh yeah.
And actually, somebody, I think it was like one of my beta readers was like, for the love of God, these chapters are just fucking long. So
He's like
I went back.
Fucking novella for a chapter. Like,
that, really, it makes more sense to break it up here and stuff. And I mean, now it's much better. But I mean, that's kind of an older book too, but yeah. So.
Yeah, and that goes back to like the chapters versus chapter breaks. Like I write fairly long chapters, but I generally tend to put chapter breaks in there. So if I have some, sections that are going to be attached that are related to each other, I'll put chapter breaks in there and just make one long chapter. But for the most part, I try to write, not long chapters, but I like the chapter breaks. And I think Stephen King kind of does that as well, where he'll number his chapter breaks, but they're really chapter breaks. And he'll do, 10 parts to a book, which are really almost chapters, and these chapter breaks are like sub-chapters. So, I think that's a way to keep people engaged. Obviously, this through good storytelling and keeping the action moving rather than stagnant and kind of bogging it down. Because we've all probably read books where you're getting into it and you're like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, you're describing things way too much. It's not necessary. And I'm sure we'll talk about this when it comes to the editing episode. But a good editor will tell you, like, hey, you need more here or you need a lot less here. We've all read, like, I read The Terror by Dan Simmons. Excellent book. But towards the end, he starts talking about, like, fucking nautical terms and things like that, and just going on about the boat and the construction of the boat and the wood. And I'm like, the book's 800 pages long. I don't need 200 pages of fucking shipbuilding. I want to know about the monster eating people on the ice. So that book could have been. It was a great book, but it could have definitely knocked out 200 pages of that. So keeping the story progression, I think, is key to keeping your reader engaged.
Well, I got a question for you guys, actually, now that we fucking talking about this. But what do you guys think about, like, font size? Like, because I almost wondered, like, when I was first starting out, I was like, I thought about it, and I was like, man, I wonder if I put, like, a slightly larger font than the norm, if that will keep people more engaged because they're turning pages quicker and the text looks less daunting. Now, on the other side of that, you have your traditionalists that are probably not really going to like to see a larger print on the page. You could make it subtly larger, though, right? Like 1 point difference, you know what I mean? Something like that. But the other thing you have to consider with this is that by elongating your book, you're also cutting into your profits because the page length is going to increase because your font's larger, right? So those are just a bunch of thoughts on that one thing. What do you guys think?
I'll go first on this because I really have put a lot of thought into this as well. When I'm a big font person, and it may sound weird, but I read a lot of books, and when I get something like I like Forgotten Realms, I'm sure Roland knows all about Forgotten Realms and Wizards of the Coast, the Drizzt series with R.A. Salvatore. Those paperbacks, the font is like a fucking 4. It's ridiculous. Like grains of sand. And it's so fucking hard to read, and it's straining on your eyes. And I would rather read an 800-page book that has a bigger font with some better spacing in it than a 200-page book that looks like I'm fucking reading sand. So actually, it's funny because I actually have my books here because I had them for the other thing I was doing. Like my font, I use a 12-point font.
It's a fucking cheap plug. No.
Yeah, I have all 3 of my books.
Check them out on Amazon, guys. You know.
DanielJVolpe.com. But that's not even a real website. It's probably fucking scat porn or something. But even the spacing, like I put my spacing at 1.25, and like Aaron said, it's a subtle thing, but it's that little bit of extra spacing, and it makes people feel accomplished. Again, James Patterson model where he's writing 1 million fucking chapters because you're like, man, I read a whole book in a day and a half, and it gives that sense of accomplishment. So that's my kind of take on it. Carver, what are you thinking?
I'm kind of with you. I think I use about a 12-point font for pretty much all my books. So and then once, like we've talked before about formatting and stuff with me using vellum, once you kind of set that how you want it, I just leave it alone and kind of keep it going like that. But and then we're just talking paperback, I guess, right? Because with electronic books,
they're choosing with the electronic.
Yeah, they pretty much choose it for you, so you don't really have much of a say.
Which is great.
I'm with you guys. I don't like looking at a page and like it just the words look crunched together and small, and you look at it and you think it's gonna take me forever to read one fucking page. So when the font is larger, it just keeps me a little more motivated to keep going. It's not as intimidating.
But that also brings us back to, we're talking about short chapters, short paragraphs too. If I open
that's
a book
huge.
and there's 2 pages that are 1 paragraph.
Fuck that.
Again, it's daunting. You look at it and you're like, fuck, man, like, come on. Like, I've always described my style as almost because I started out writing like screenplays and stuff like that. So I try to. Now I've looked at some of my books and I do have some longer paragraphs and stuff, but for the most part, I think I'm pretty good about keeping them short and, keeping the reader moving through them pretty quickly so that you don't get intimidated by the page either,
That is fucking, I'm so glad you brought that up. That is huge. And I've heard like very successful writers from our genre, you know, like Adam Caesar. I believe like I think he was doing like an interview that I read years ago where he was talking about, I think it was John Skip that like sort of took him under his wing and like, you know, taught him some different things. It might not be. It was somebody else though, but anyway, he was saying like that was the hugest thing that he taught him. Out of everything that he taught him, that breaking that shit up and making it digestible was the biggest thing. And
Yeah.
I completely agree, just because I tend to have a pretty short attention span too. And just as a consumer in general, man, you see those two fucking enormous paragraphs. It's one thing like to put it like in one spot, like later in the book when it like really fucking calls for it. You know what I mean? But it's another thing to put it like right up in the beginning or have it riddled with those, you know? Like, we're not saying don't put it in one spot, but it should be nice, like a lot of indentation, nice and digestible. And actually dialogue too, right? Like you could talk about dialogue in the same vein, right? Were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to actually touch on that with dialogue. So I personally separate most of my dialogue from the action and stuff, where I've seen a lot of authors will put the dialogue in, action, more dialogue, you know, keeping as long as it's the same character and stuff like that. But I tend to separate my dialogue and make it faster to read, kind of like a screenplay. So.
Yeah, no, I mean these are definitely things that, you know, we're all readers. I think before we were writers, so it's one of those things where you have to take that into consideration for your reader. And you know, the 3 out of 4 of us are wearing glasses. You know, your eyes are going to get strained after a while. I mean, I can't help that. I just have been gifted with beautiful, great vision.
They took your hair instead.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
I love when Roland gets amped up. Roland
Fucking
goes, "These
hurtful.
motherfuckers."
So hurtful.
Hey,
So
I know
Kevin Carver.
Mr. Homeless over here, right? Is that...
Yeah, that's true. You shaved your beard though. You don't look as fucking disheveled.
I did. I'm self-conscious now. I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go beach bum like Roland out there in Hawaii and shit."
Maybe you're wearing a couch cover, but
Wow.
but I digress. But like I said, like for the font stuff, you know, your eyes start to get fucking go crazy on you if you're reading tiny ass font after a while. So I always push towards that size 12.
Yeah.
We always like a size 12.
whatever floats your boat.
But I think but that was just one. That was just
Turn that
one
fan
bullet
on
point.
high.
Yeah.
Honestly, that was a fuckload of good takeaways from that one, though.
Yeah.
How do you keep a reader engaged? We kind of went all over the place with that, but I think a lot of that engagement is really, you know, with visually too, you know. And I'm glad we brought that up. But so let's talk about point of view now. It's a pretty interesting one. What point of view do you guys prefer, if you have a preference? And are there any differences in between the two that you think someone who's writing for the first time should be aware of, like major differences? Why don't we have? Oh, go ahead, Carver. You can go first then.
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, why don't we have Roland go first? Because there's always a request for more Roland.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Come on, Roland.
Come on, Roland, you got this, man.
I'm the shy one.
Oh,
You know, I think the few books that I have written, I'm always writing from the character's point of view. Like in Abortion, it was from the little guy's or girl's point of view, and also in Payback as a Witch. That's all of my stories have been that way. So that's the only way I have had experience writing so far.
Okay, and that's that's how you feel comfortable. But there's not. Is there? And this is interesting because since you haven't really gone, that would be the first person, right? That you're saying because you're writing from the character point of view.
Yeah, the first person.
Do you have any plans to do stuff from the third person?
I don't know. I feel like it's easier to tell the story from the main protagonist's point of view for me. I've read stories where, you know, it was from a third person's point of view, and I just didn't, I don't know. I won't say I didn't feel as connected to the character, but it didn't flow as fluidly as it did from a first person's point of view.
I can see why you would say that. I do agree with the connection aspect. You know, I do feel like people really end up like having more invested in the character when you write from the first person, in like feeling the slights against the character or ups and downs. But I will say that writing in the third person gives you more options, I think, as far as like, you know, you can sort of explain something that you wouldn't really be able to explain otherwise in the third person, you know, if you were just going through like that character's perspective. So, but it's like a give or take, you know, like you're sort of sacrificing some of that intimacy between the reader and the character for different writing style and description style. But Carver, I know you've been wanting to talk on this.
Well, I'm just going to jump on that and say that, like, one thing about third person that you got to be careful with, and I did this a lot with my first series, Edge of Reflection, which I've gone through and I've tried to clean them up, and I think they're a lot better now than when they first came out. But I wrote those in third person. And when you're dealing with, like, especially like third person omniscient and stuff like that, you got to be careful with head hopping, because it can jar the reader when you think you're in one person's head and then you're in somebody else's head and then you're in somebody else's head. You know what I mean? So if I'm saying, like, you know, Sean couldn't believe that he was, you know, walking down the street right now when it was about to storm, and then all of a sudden I'm talking about Aaron had his hands in his pockets, and you know what I mean? Like, it can, you're like, well, who are we focusing on here?
Confusing.
It can be kind of confusing and stuff like that. So I tend to, when I am using third person, I tend to stick with like third person, like kind of deep point of view, where I stick with that character. So even though it's third person, most of the story is told through Roland, or at least Roland's chapters. You only know what Roland's thinking, even though it's third person. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Totally.
And then, so that's what I was going to say with first person. I tend to, like, I think genres influence that a lot too. Like the romance side of things most of the stories you read tend to be in first person, I think, because you want to feel what the person's feeling, what the girl's feeling when, you know, during all the sex and stuff like that. With horror, I kind of feel like,
yeah, baby.
Daniel wants to feel. So with horror, I've done both. Like my Diablo Snuff is first person, but see, I've gone back and forth with this, because sometimes when I'm reading first person in horror, I don't feel, even though you can feel what's going on, sometimes I don't feel that scared for the character, because I feel like they're telling the story, so probably they lived through it.
Right.
That's a tricky thing. If it's first person past, because, like, you know, they're telling the story as if it happened and they survived it. So now sometimes they do die at the end. I mean, the author pulls it off, you know, in a good way, but a lot of times I feel like, well, they probably lived if it's first person and it's past. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Granted, now my Diablo Snuff series, most of that is first person past. So,
can I talk about what you said about with the head hopping? Because, like, and I think one way, if you do have a story that requires head hopping, one way that you can do it successfully is to use breaks within the chapter. Yeah. Like what I did with one of them, Wedding Day Massacre, right? There's this crazy wedding that's going on where there's all these different characters and people are dying in crazy ways, right? And there's one chapter where I wanted to show the perspective of the people that were still living at that point. And there's like 7 or 8 characters or different tables that you have to go through to understand what each of them is feeling and try and figure out, man, how this is going to play out, you know? So I think one way you could do that is to use breaks within the chapter. And that's just what I did. You know, I did like the DJ, his shit, and then a break. Then you know, the fucking table of coworkers, then a break, and so on, you know. Yeah. But
with that Edge of Reflection series, when I went through and was fixing it, that's what I had to do, because like I had a big battle scene in these, like in a New York kind of alleyway area, and I was jumping from the antagonist and the protagonist, and like I was doing a lot of head hopping, and so I had to use breaks like that and try to keep it, you know what I mean, separate it for the reader, because it is jarring, and it can make a reader put the book down if they're like, what the fuck is going on? Like one second I'm in this character's head, now I'm in this character's head, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So definitely the breaks help a lot. If you want to take a master class and third person point of view where there is no head hopping, you got to read George R. R. Martin. I mean, when he does like the whole Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire series, I mean, that kind of taught me to like stick with one character for each chapter, or I try to with a lot of books when I'm doing third person. If I have multiple characters and stuff, I try to give each character their own chapter to keep myself from head hopping a lot of times. So
yeah, I was actually going to bring him up, because that is, I mean, his chapters are titled with, for the most part, they're titled with that character that you're going to experience. So you know, starting that chapter, like this is from this person's, not necessarily a first person point of view, but it's their point of view in a third person. For me, I have never written a piece of long fiction in the first person. I always do third person. I've done some first person stuff in short stories, but to me, first person almost seems a little daunting. I probably will do something in the near future, but I definitely agree with what you guys said about the chapter breaks, because in the new book that's coming out, A Gift of Death, I have a sizable amount of characters, and they all kind of meet up at one point. So there is a lot of head hopping, but I put a lot of chapter breaks in there because I didn't want it to be confusing. So it kind of looks a little odd, because you'll have like maybe 2 or 3 sentences and then a break, and then 2 or 3 sentences and then a break, and then a paragraph and a page and then a break. But I think it kind of makes that story, like you guys said, like, like, all right, now I'm going into this person's point of view. It's almost juxtaposed. So you're seeing, hey, this just happened from this person's point of view. Now we're going to look at it from this guy's point of view.
What are you laughing about, Aaron?
I don't know. I love it. I love this shit, guys. I wrote some
romance books in second person point of view. I think I've mentioned this on here, but second person.
Can you read some of that?
Usually it's reserved for like cookbooks and stuff. Now
hey man,
3 eggs.
Beat your dick.
How you're gonna do this, do that.
Choose your own adventure, right? You win through the fucking door.
So with the romance books, I would put the reader in. I would put the reader in the point. Basically, I was making them the star of the story. So I was saying,
build your own porn star.
You look out the window. Your gardener's out there mowing the lawn with his shirt off. Well, whatever, you know what I mean. But like, they're the character, the main character and stuff. It's hard to pull off, and it's almost annoying as the author trying to write like that. After a while, you're just like, man, you want to switch back to first or third. So, but
Nicole Cushing did a book called Mr. Suicide from the second person. That's pretty infamous as far as horror goes. That might be one, if anyone is interested in like writing from that point of view. I think that one was pretty well received, and might be worth looking at. It's kind of a weird thing. I don't know that would be what I suggest to start out with for your first thing, but it's probably something that I might never touch. I might never do it. That's how weird it is. But
talking about points of view, it's funny how people are so like. I mean, our readers can be really adamant about, like, some people will only read first person, some will only read third person. I mean, if they pick up a book, for example, Jules, if we're in a store and she picks up a book and it's in third person, she'll put it down. I mean, she only likes to read first person. It just bothers her to read third for the most part. So
Chandler Morrison did a book, Until the Sun. That was second person. That was fucking excellent. And going into it, like, you start reading it and you realize, oh shit, this is second person, and he does a great job at it. And it's probably one of the better vampire novels I think I've ever read. So if you haven't read that, definitely check that out. He's a really awesome writer. Yeah, it's a great book. I don't think I've ever written one in second person.
I've just written one. So, but
no,
that's cool.
I definitely want to have Carver read some of his second person romance.
I want to do the audiobooks for him.
Oh God,
Carver came out to the car.
Yeah.
He's reading with one hand, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey.
Yeah, but what was I gonna say? Fucking,
Fucking,
I
he had the
forgot.
fucking dice in his fucking hand.
I forgot, dude. I had a point and it totally slipped my mind. Oh, that was what it was. I was gonna say I did. What about both styles in one book? So
I was just gonna ask that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen that too.
So I did like
That's a lot of romance.
yeah, with the slob, I did almost that entire book in the first person. But then towards the end, there's a couple chapters that are sort of explaining some of the story that are in third person because the main character is no longer associated at that point, and it goes off. But then the fucking it's really not.
Uh-oh.
But all right, Roland's paused. He might be back in a second.
There he is.
There he is.
But then
Roland!
Oh, stop touching your phone.
My daddy was calling.
A lot of books I've seen have like I've seen books where the one character is in first person and then the other character is always in third, like maybe the killer's in third and the protagonist is in first or something like that, or a romance book where the male's in third and the female's in first and that kind of thing.
So I just had a friend of ours give me an arc of his new book coming out, and he does that where he does a first person and a third person point of view with his main characters in first person, and there's some supporting characters that are in third person. So he did a great job with it, so it really worked out well for him. So I can't wait for it to come out.
are you talking about the Son of the Slob or a different one?
No, that's what I was talking about, but I didn't want to.
Oh, you can say it. No, I was.
All right,
I was about to bring it up.
Anything.
You don't have to spoil anything. It's part of the. I want people to know anyway. You know, like that. Yeah, there's.
I had a friend that wears black glasses and he's wearing a black hat that had this book
and a couch and my grandmother's couch cover, and he wrote this book. No, Aaron, I mean, I hope I don't know when that's coming out, but the hate that I've been feeling from people and the jealousy that I got to read that book before anyone else has been over fucking whelming, and I love it.
All 7 of them are hating on you, huh?
Yeah, I bask in the hatred. But no, Aaron, you did a great job with it, and you really did. You used the first person for some chapters to really get into Vera's head and her emotions, and then you went into the third person for some of them. So, like you said, to emphasize on those supporting characters and really kind of push that story along to the things we don't see from her point of view. So I think for the listeners and any aspiring writers, reading books like that touch on both points of view, it's important for you to learn both aspects of it to really enhance your storytelling and to get that point across to your readers. And like I said, I just finished reading. I mean, Aaron, how long did it take me to read that? A day and a half?
It was fast, yeah.
I was engaged with it because you switched that point of view, and you did it in such a way that it wasn't like head hopping. It was well done. So definitely take a look at that stuff and books that will bounce around from that first to third person.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people will say, don't do that. Don't do first person and third person in the same book. You can't do that. It's unacceptable. Yeah. It's bullshit, dude. It's fucking bullshit. Yeah. If you do it right, we do whatever the fuck we want here on the Written and Read podcast. Yeah. And if you do it right,
do it live.
Yeah, and if you know how to do both styles, you can totally do it. Don't listen to people. I mean, look, if you're writing a book that you're saying, "Oh, I'm only doing this for a publisher to pick it up," then maybe you don't want to do it, because that's sort of like, an industry thing, I guess. But even so, I've seen some larger published books that jump back and forth. But for whatever reason,
House of Leaves.
Don't break all the rules. Don't mix them in the same chapter and shit. Don't do one paragraph in first and another paragraph.
That's not what I'm saying.
Because I've actually seen books where it was an obvious mistake where they've messed up the point of view and stuff like that. So play by some rules, I'd say, but yeah.
But if you know how to do both of them, you could pull it off. There's no.
Absolutely.
It's not as hard as you would think. I just think it's important, having. If you do have that main character, it's actually a really cool thing because okay, you got this main character, right? And you like you were saying, Carver, you don't know, like, if that person dies, like, they're probably not going to die, right? Because the story's told from their point of view, unless it's at the very end. But when you're doing chapters both differently like that, there leaves more uncertainty, and you can allude to things. You can make the reader aware of things that the main character is not, right? So when the main character is going through the door, you were like, fuck, we were just in there in the third person last chapter, some shit went down. I know what's going to happen, but the characters, like, you know, you don't know how the character's going to react, and they don't know. So it's kind of cool. You could do some weird stuff that otherwise you wouldn't really be able to.
I can tell you, you know, it's a real bitch is trying to change a movie script or screenplay over to a third person book.
Oh,
Fuck
that.
man. Because, you know, movie scripts or screenplays are usually first person present. You know, she walks through the door, turns on the light, or like present tense is what I'm saying. So, and then you're talking about in past tense and third person and writing it out as a book. And man, that's where I've fucked up before and caught the changes and stuff and points of view. So, not fun.
Man, writing screenplays is fun though, huh?
Yeah, it is.
I thought that shit. The only thing that sucks about it is, like, you can't really do shit with it. I just found it to end up being
that's
like.
Why I started writing books because I was like, unless I'm gonna go out and make a fucking indie film, you know what I mean? Like, there's not much I can do with it. So
That's what I was trying to do at one point, and like I did make some like short stuff, but we never ended up like actually finishing it. But I thought like the writing process of it was really fun, and like sitting down with someone and sort of visualizing it. This is obviously, we're not talking about screenplays, but if you guys are interested in screenplays, there was a great book that I read that helped me through it called How Not to Write a Screenplay.
I like the Screenwriter's Bible. That's an awesome book.
That's another good one, yep. So, but we'll get back into... I think that's pretty good for point of view, right? Does anybody else have anything they want to...
Yeah.
No, I think we beat the shit out of those.
Well, it's funny because there's actually more to it than you would think. You know?
Yeah.
Like, we sort of went into all these weird things.
It
which is why this is the illest fucking podcast out.
100%.
All right, so let's talk about protagonists and antagonists. Just the importance of the protagonist and antagonist. Maybe like, obviously these are going to be the strongest. They should be the most defined characters in your story in most cases, right? Is there any just general talking points that you, and maybe Daniel, you can start this one. I think we were talking about this a little earlier. But
yeah, I think with both of these things, the protagonist and the antagonist, you have to make them relatable, and you have to make them. They have to have certain qualities about them that the reader wants to read. You know, if you have a protagonist that's just that lawful good, we'll say, if you have the chart set up and they're just lawful good and they do no wrong and they have no issues with themselves and they're just that lawful good character, people don't relate to that because as human beings, everybody's got
skeletons in the closet.
Yes, so everybody's going to have something. And again, you might have some flawed characters, and Carver was talking about George R.R. Martin, and he's great with the gray characters in there. And
yeah.
I think for the protagonist and stuff, having that character have some human flaws. Maybe they have an addiction or something as small as like smoking cigarettes. It's nothing crazy, but it's a small human flaw that they might have, or anything else that we all share. So I think making them relatable and making them human it's difficult, to sit there and actually make them relatable to the reader. If you have somebody that's just so good and they do nothing and they got straight A's and they're the greatest person, they pick up fucking litter and they help old people cross the street and they don't curse and whatever. People aren't going to relate to them because there's nobody there's nobody like that. And the same thing with the antagonist. If you have somebody who's just so evil and there's the evil piece of shit and there's nothing redeeming about them, it makes for a good bad guy. But there's always got to be something. Why are they like that? What made them be such a piece of shit? Was it some kind of childhood thing, or a supernatural thing or something along those lines. So humanizing.
I'm gonna argue with you a little bit. Not argue with you, but just sometimes I think it depends on what you're trying to pull off there with the antagonist, because sometimes a lot of people won't agree with me on this, but like I'll use the Halloween movies as an example. To me, the original Halloween was scarier than shit because you didn't know anything about Michael Myers other than he was fucking evil. Yeah. I mean, he was the shape, at first before he was Michael Myers and stuff, You didn't know anything about him. You saw sometimes from his point of view and heard his breathing and stuff like that. But then when Rob Zombie's Halloween came out, and I like his movie for what it is as a different kind of movie. But I didn't find it scary because it started back and showed all the stuff going on with the kid and what he went through and stuff like that. And to me, it kind of sucked the fear out of it.
Yeah, it's funny.
I saw him as like a twisted individual, and I saw his character arc and all that stuff. But I felt like the fear that the original Halloween had in it, you know what I mean? Like it just kind of sucked that right out of it.
It's funny you say that because recently someone had made the comment, something along the lines of like, oh, like when I wrote the book The Slob, like, oh, the Slob was like an underdeveloped character. Like their critique was just that, which I can understand. It just depends like what you like, sort of.
Yeah.
But they were like, oh, like there wasn't enough explained about that character or like that you understood about that character. But that was sort of the point of the character. It was more to leave an uncertainty, and I agree with you 100%. I love those original Halloween movies because there's that mystique, but there's like certain distinct traits that the character has, but there's so much mystery too. And I fucking hate, especially the second Rob Zombie one. That is one of the worst horror movies I've ever fucking seen, dude. It is so bad. I mean, I know I was shitting on the Craft remake. You could put those two in bed together and let them fuck each other, in my opinion. But
I gotta say, because I think it depends on what you're going for. Like, I have to agree with what Daniel was saying. Like, a good example of that is if you ever watched the Bates Motel TV show. I fucking love the Bates Motel TV show and how they showed Norman Bates and stuff growing up and just kind of showing him develop into that fucking the sick bastard that he is later on. None of you guys watched Bates Motel?
Oh, yeah, excellent.
It was pretty good. Yeah, excellent.
You gotta get on if you haven't. But see, to me, that's kind of like what Daniel was saying, is you're understanding what made him that way and what made him tick and stuff. So I think it kind of depends on what you're going for. I mean, if you want to show how they became such a sick and twisted, and you want your readers to kind of feel for the bad guy, or just have like a connection with him in that way, then that's what you do. But if you want to write scary to the point that you don't, there's just something to say for not developing too much sometimes.
Sometimes less is more, right?
Exactly.
To just go back to that old saying, like it's so true.
I had somebody reached out and told me that with Scalp, they felt like they were kind of bummed that I didn't go into, where these parasitic head lice came from, and I didn't like go into the background of them. They just kind of showed up at the beginning of the book. And I'm kind of going to touch on that with the prequel because I think it's time now. I mean, if you decide you want to go back and read the prequel and see kind of where they came from and stuff like that, fine. But I did that on purpose. Like, I didn't want you to, I kind of wanted you to think about, I presented some theories. The characters had theories on where they might have come from and things like that. And I thought it was kind of cool to leave it like that, not exactly say where they came from and, the background of them. So,
but Carver, you didn't want to wait until part 6, like in Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers, when it's revealed that the evil cult and the fucking
Thorn,
the Thorn, dude.
So the unknown horror, I think that's what you're touching on with that Michael Myers, and I think one of probably the best. I don't know if I can call it an antagonist or just a natural enemy. One of the best ones out there from the unknown horror is the fucking shark in Jaws. There's nothing fucking scarier than that music and that fear of the unknown. And like you said, Carl, with the original Halloween with Michael Myers, like it's almost like that shark in Jaws where you're like, I don't know when this motherfucker's gonna pop out, but if I'm in the water, you're not safe. And we didn't know nothing about it. It was a fish. I mean, it was just doing what sharks do. It was feeding. And they made it into this probably one of the most iconic and scariest books and movies ever made. And it was that fear of the dark water and the unknown. And I think that's what we see a lot of with some of these great antagonists. And then again, you have other ones where you get like Hannibal Lecter, which actually I'm rocking my fucking Buffalo Bills lotion shirt today.
Yo, tuck it in. Do you got it tucked in, Daniel, or what?
No, no.
No.
I'm not in full dad mode right now. It's late.
I was talking about your cock.
Oh, no, that is. It's in my sock.
Oh shit.
Relax, Ron. Oh, what? Listen.
Yo, you know what though? You know what's crazy though is that I love that part. Like with the Michael Myers character, it's like super fucking creepy because you don't know a whole lot in that first movie. But then there's just like things he does that just make you scared of him, you know, like just like when Loomis is in the fucking house that he broke back into and he's like, what is that? He's like, it's a dog. He must have got hungry. Like, just shit like that. And I'm just like, yo, like, they don't even have to show nothing in the movie. And it just puts the picture and the idea in your head. And you're just like, man, this motherfucker's a savage, you know? Like
Yay, fucking Fido.
Right? I love it, though. I love it. I think and I think going back to what you were saying, Daniel, about, you know, someone being too good. Like, I think you can have a character that has very minimal flaws as long as they've been through some shit. You know what I mean? So like, you know, as long as they've gone through, even though they might not have to be a bad person or, like you were saying, you know, have done something that's like fucked up and relatable, like they could still be a pretty solid person as long as you know that they have like those experiences they went through that sort of the reader should be able to relate to, I guess. But
yeah,
absolutely.
But that's pretty much, I mean, that's protagonist and antagonist. Anybody want to add anything else? Or?
No, I think we got on that pretty good.
No, yeah.
Roland's still sweating from the cock remark, so let's move on.
All right, so we can.
Keep them guessing.
What shirt are you wearing, Roland? What? I can't see Roland's shirt.
I'm sorry.
It's the craft. It's the craft sequel
Craft
shirt.
again. Yeah,
It's not the sequel. He wouldn't fucking do that, would he? Are you trying to get me fired up, Roland?
Hey, I got a question for you guys and the listeners. My shirt is happier than a pig, and how would you finish that?
Shit, yeah.
Shit, right?
Yeah.
Of course.
I've been arguing with this. I was with Jules the other day because she says happier than a pig in mud, and I said no. My dad always
Absolutely
said
not.
shit.
That's not a thing.
I walked up
It's
to
not
like
real.
3 random people on the street the other day when I had this on. I think we were in the mall, and I was just asking random fucking people, how would you finish the... Everybody said mud. I'm like, what the fuck? I always heard happier than a pig and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just the PG version that her parents probably told her or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Pig and scat.
And one lady actually answered me. I told a lady, I said, I thought it was happier to pig and shit. And she's like, well, I don't see how a pig would be happy in that.
So, ma'am, have you ever rolled around a warm pile of excrement?
I know, right?
Missing out.
With
If
corn
not,
in it?
Come home with me. You know?
Yeah.
All right, so here's another point, guys, which actually I feel like we've broached this slightly with the questions, but not exactly. But we want to say, you know, how do we find a dark place to tap into the taboo and depraved ideas and weave those elements into our story? Like sort of the more difficult things when we're writing, you know, like things that obviously you're not going to be comfortable with writing. Like it could be even something as simple as murder, you know, maybe that's hard for some people to do in like a very graphic and detailed format. Do you guys struggle with writing anything in particular as far as the more gruesome elements, or is there any advice you can give to the writer?
I'd say my issue's always been getting out of it. Like sometimes I get into the dark space, and then as you know, I write with other pen names, so sometimes I need to switch pen names, and I just can't yet. Like I feel like I need to write another horror, or like when I get really deep into the dark stuff and I'm writing, sometimes kind of go there personally too. Like it's sometimes hard to get out of it mentally for me. But do you guys have issues with that too, or no? You guys,
I love it personally.
you're just fine in your filth.
So I'm happy as the pig and shit, Carver. But,
Yeah.
I have no issues going into those. I could write a scene where there's fucking humans being roasted in a spit and go outside and play with my kids. Like right after that, like I have no issues going from the extreme writing to everyday life. So
Daniel J. Volpe was a normal man until they found his family dead.
Yeah, I have a dirt basement.
But he said he was a perfect neighbor.
Yeah, exactly.
He turned his children into dolls.
All about these are my
puts them in the oven.
There we go.
But no, we do write some fucked up shit. But at the end of the day, and I think we've touched on this, Aaron especially, it's fiction. Some of the stuff may be pulled from the headlines, but at the end of the day, what we're writing is fiction. So I kind of just see it as a horror movie. I'm writing this stuff. Yeah, it's fucked up. If these were real people, I'd be like, man, this is really fucked up. But these are paper characters, in the computer screen. So I don't know if that makes me a fucked up human being, but I have no issues going from writing a horrendous scene to everyday life watching fucking Spirit, a horse show on Disney.
And with the question, how do you find tap into a dark place and stuff? Sometimes, if I'm just not feeling it and stuff, and I've mentioned this before, but I'll put on like a horror writing playlist, like music and stuff like that. And sometimes if I can just set the mood, can't listen to Ed Sheeran and shit and
yeah.
try
What
to
do you
write
listen
a fucking
to? What do you listen to? Piss Stained Shirt? You ever listen to them?
No.
You gotta check them out.
Well,
I think
what do you got rolling?
Like when I'm writing, I don't have a problem tapping into it, but I have a problem worrying that I'm going to be judged for it. I don't know why.
Fair.
It's weird.
That's fair.
I know my family and my friends support my writing, but then I feel like when they write it, they're going to be like, God, I don't want to be his friend anymore. He's really fucked up in the head. And not to mention that, I do a lot of my writing at work, so of course I'm always looking over my shoulder like, who the hell is going to walk up behind me seeing me write something about somebody fucking an ass or...
That's what I always tell the kids here, you probably shouldn't tell your friends' parents, what I write and stuff. They're not going to want you to come over anymore. They're not going to want to them come over here anymore and stuff, One of the kids here told his teacher at school, that his stepdad is a horror author, and then I was like, oh my God, man, if this teacher picks up one of my books, But, hey.
I don't have that problem. My friends love it. They eat it up, and pretty much everyone that I know is either I tell them hey, this is what it's about. It's really fucked up. It's really dark. And okay, it's not for me. And some people are like, yeah, whatever, I'll give it a shot. So I really don't have that. issue.
Yeah, whatever. I'll read your stupid fucking book.
Yeah, how much does the fucking cost?
Oh, you want me to read your little book? Okay, I'll read your little book.
There you go. Thank you, sir.
I always tell my friends, they're like, oh, I'm still at this part, and then I'm like, dude, I know you have a life. I don't expect you to. I know you're not a reader. You're my fucking friend that I did drugs with for 10 years. You know what I mean? I don't think I saw you read a fucking book that entire time. God bless you, dude. Relax. Your blood pressure's probably through the roof. But I think with this shit, it's I don't know. I think there was something to what Roland said, afraid of judgment, right? And you see it on social media all the time too. I think recently I just saw, I don't want to mention them by name, but I saw another author that was just basically like this person had written some pretty heavy hitting books. I thought they were pretty popular as far as I knew. And they just said, I'm done with writing. I'm done with, I'm not releasing any more books. I'm going to do these commitments. I'm closing my Twitter and my fucking Instagram. You guys won. Enjoy. goodbye.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? Just
That's fucked up.
like you
Yeah.
see people folding under the pressure of like what other people's expectations are, and like, you know, Roland, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, right? Where you were like, you felt like some people made you feel like that you weren't able to write about abortion because you're a man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And this goes all different ways, right? For like whatever people, however people want to group you, right? You could potentially become a victim, so to speak, of you know, just somebody saying, "Well, you don't get to write that because you're not a part of that experience." And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, again, it's fiction, guys. You know, and like
Yeah.
I think we all sort of came to the consensus that it's fiction, and as long as you're being relatively respectful, there's certain things that you obviously shouldn't do, and we're not going to go into those. You should fucking know what they are already, you know? But Brian Keene did a big tweet that sort of was discussing this. He put up like 11 tweets in a row that were just basically saying, you know, I've written all these different, you know, I'm paraphrasing obviously, but I've written all these different characters from all these different perspectives. And it's like, I think long story short, he was kind of just saying like, you guys, like you can choose whether or not to support someone because you don't like that style of writing. But it's like, because they're writing that way doesn't give you the right to fucking try and like cancel them essentially. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was glad to see that he sort of spoke up on that. And I was like, you know, thanks for speaking up, because I feel like anybody's a target at any time with that stuff. And, you know, you see people that the pressure just ends up not being worth it to them, you know?
Yeah, and it's sad too, because like I said, we write fiction. Like it's supposed to be entertaining. It's fake. Fiction is fake. You know, we want to write stuff that we enjoy. And if you pick something up, rather than complain about it, just don't read it. You know, there are some authors online I've seen, and there are some things they post, and I don't agree with. So I might be like, hey, you know what? I'm not going to support their work, or I don't like the topic they're dealing with, so I'm not going to read it. I don't go on there and say these people need to be banned or pulled off there, or I bash them or anything like that, because I'm what we like to refer to as a fucking adult, and I'm not going to just beat them up for no reason.
Yeah.
You know, we have this right to put down on paper what we want to do. So, like Aaron said, like, you know, it's a shame that some of these people are getting bullied out of writing and expressing their art, and that's what it is. We're here to entertain each other and entertain our readers. So, you know, it's sad.
Aaron, you say, you know, there are certain things that we shouldn't touch on, but in this genre, I mean, I've read some way out crazy fucked up shit. Is there a line that you shouldn't cross? Do you think there is?
Well, I was more just referring to like, all right, let's say that you are, remember how we were talking about weaving in your political views in a third person view and kind of like that sort of shit? Like, yeah. I just mean like, if you're saying like if somebody was to position some shit that was like super like racist or sexist or something like that in a third person view, you know what I mean? That's not coming. Gotcha. That's not coming from the character.
Coming from the character.
Like it makes it seem more like, oh, this is just what the fucking author is putting in here. Yeah. You know what I mean? Gotcha. It has nothing to do with the character. That's the only line that I have. If it's a character, there's no bounds to their depravity, in my opinion. You know, nope. I don't know if you feel the same, but when it's done in that third person view, like somehow some people like to embed their beliefs into it. And here's the thing, like kind of going back to that. I mean, if that's the type of book that you want to write, then I guess go for it. But in my opinion, I just think you're alienating the audience. And like, it's just not what I'm personally into, you know?
Yeah.
But there are some people that will write in that manner. And, you know, I'm not talking about the extreme manner I was just talking about. But I just mean like, you know, sort of if you have a message to get across in your book. I mean, there are some people that do that, but I think it's overdone sometimes to the extreme, and that's when I get turned off. That's just a personal preference, though. But,
Yeah.
I understand. Awesome.
what about you guys? Or Roland? What about you? What do you think? Is it?
Is there a line that you shouldn't cross?
Yeah, I'm just curious to see because I know
Well,
you've
like you
written
were
some crazy
saying,
shit.
yeah, if it's coming from the character's point of view, absolutely not. If that's what the character's going to do, if that's what the character's going to say, feel, think, do it, because that's what we're writing. We're writing the story for the character. So, yeah, in my opinion, there's no line that you shouldn't cross if you're writing for the character from a specific point of view.
Yeah. So I feel like it's kind of common sense almost,
Yeah.
But like today,
Yeah.
common sense isn't that common, unfortunately. But
I'll be right back, guys. I have to.
I'm gonna add something just because I think the story is kind of funny. So, because even on social media, like in real life and stuff, we all make mistakes. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you don't like. Sometimes I don't necessarily think a certain way. Let me. I made a post in my group about I was in a like a shop for like an antique kind of shop.
yeah,
And I was walking by. I don't know if you saw this in my group, but I was walking by this wall and I saw this picture and I was like, "Holy shit, that's fucking creepy!" Like I literally just thought that's a creepy picture. Like I didn't really get it. I asked the guy, I was like, "Damn, how much is that?" And he said $10. I bought it, whatever. And I showed it on Facebook, and it's funny because most of the female readers were saying like, "Oh my God, that's awesome!" Like one girl said, "Send it to me if you don't want it. If you're not gonna buy it and send it to me," and all this kind of stuff. So I bought this picture thinking this was just fucking creepy, right? And then Jules saw it and she said, "I can't believe you bought that. Like you didn't think about what that means." And I was like,
oh my
it's
god,
fucking creepy.
this is
Right, I'm
awesome.
going to show you this picture, right? So this is going to be some controversial shit right here, right? So again, me and my stupid man mentality, I guess, I was just like, that's a horror writer mentality. Like, this is a creepy ass picture. I'm going to buy it. I didn't think about that it was kind of sexist, right? So apparently, back in the day, this is how they did swimsuit competitions. They would put masks, I guess, over the women's faces. Can you see this?
Oh shit!
Oh yeah.
Now, again, I'm walking through the store and I'm just like, what the fuck is that? That's weird. Like, I was like, that's fucking creepy. Like, that could be something in a book, And as soon as she saw it in the car, she was like, I can't believe you bought that. Like, you're not thinking about, like, that's sexist. Like, they didn't want to see the women's faces. It was only about their bodies. And I was like, no, I didn't think about that at all. I just,
It just looks like the fucking dude from
Now
The
I have this
Strangers
picture. I don't know
on all
what to do
these.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's a
on the
strangers.
wall, and now I'm like an asshole. So I just got this $10 picture in this fucking bag that it came in, sitting on my desk. Like I don't even know what to do with it. I might have to
Awesome.
say it to
Wait.
somebody.
No, fuck that, man.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Like that's a weird part of time, and that's the thing. There's a whole movement out there to erase history, right? To erase and forget about these things.
I didn't know whether I should, because I had put that picture up in my group in a post, and I was like, I don't know if I should go delete the post now because I don't know if anybody else looked at it. And I could see what she was saying. Like I understand, how a woman could see that and say, man, that's a horrible part of our history and stuff like that.
But you're not
Yeah,
you're not
but it's-
advocating for it. Go ahead, Roland. Let me let you speak then.
I was about to say, but it's all subjective, just like everything. Like what you saw in that picture, totally different than what the next person is going to see and look at it and think. So, I think it's excellent.
Yeah, but
it's
I
a
was going to
cool
put it
ass
on my
picture.
wall in my horror author, fucking background here of just this creepy ass picture, because to me it was just like, man, that's fucking crazy. Like they put bags on people's heads and that's fucking creepy.
Yeah.
But now I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to look like I'm a fucking sexist and shit.
But dude, you're not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
And
you're
you know
not.
you're
That's the
not.
bottom line.
But my point in this whole thing was that's the kind of shit that people are canceling. Everybody, authors, actors, everybody.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes it's a genuine mistake. Like I put that up on my group. I had no idea when I put that post up that someone could look at that and say he's sexist or I can't believe you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
there are people making genuine mistakes, like aren't thinking along the same lines as you, and it's upsetting people and stuff. And that's sad because you can actually have your career ruined and shit now because of we're going down a totally crazy rabbit hole right now and shit.
we're-
But
No,
that's
no,
the
this
fun
is this
stuff.
is
It's interesting though. It
No.
like gives a completely different perspective and point of view from what we're looking at to what other people are seeing.
Yeah.
honestly, this is a fucking extremely important conversation with whoever is planning on publishing material. You know what I mean? Like, this is fucking more critical than half the other shit we're talking about if you're actually going to be successful at doing it and not get your wings clipped midway. But
Yeah.
I love all that, like, weird, macabre sort of bizarre shit. And it's like, just because you have a morbid curiosity or a curiosity into the bizarre, it doesn't make you believe in that shit. You know what I mean? Or you're not like advocating for it. But I see what you're saying. By putting it up, someone could easily misconstrue it. So you want to be knowledgeable as to what you're doing. But it's sad that you couldn't simply just put up over there, you know, if somebody commented on it, be like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that, honestly. But I just think that this is a really crazy looking picture. Like, and you could even type it all out and say, I obviously don't agree with this. You know what I mean? But I just find it fascinating because I like weird stuff. But
I think she was more upset with the fact that I bought it in an antique store. She's like, you know,
Spent
anything to be
$10
haunted
on it.
and shit. So,
but
just letting you know, everybody's arrived home, so I can already see the internet starting to act weird.
Oh, fuck.
yo, is Mindcarver coming out again?
Mindcarver.
Mindcarver.
Going to the fucking Matrix again.
Well, actually, we're at about an hour and 15 minutes, guys. So I think we're at a good stopping point. We got about 5 bullets still to turn this into part 2 for next episode. So, guys, get ready. Be looking for Diving in a Pool of Blood Part 2, where we're going to continue talking about the writing process and some other important questions on our follow-up episode. But I think, Carver, why don't we pull a question and see if we can work in. We might have time for maybe 1 or 2 questions, depending on how long they go. And then you have your reader recognition, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask, do you mind if I do the reader recognition first? Just
Sure.
because if the internet conks out on me and I disappear, I don't want to miss that, you know,
Absolutely.
chance to do that. So
The readers are always the priority.
Yeah, so
You know,
I'm actually...
I'll even heart that because I think that's a great thing.
Ah, look at that.
Oh, thank you, man. I love you, man. I'm actually going to kind of cheat tonight because I want to thank 3 people. I have 3 readers who really have followed me from my other pen names before I even started Carver Pike, and have embraced everything with Carver Pike, with Chris Genovese, CM Genovese. I mean, they literally, these 3 women have bought everything. I mean, one of them doesn't even read horror, and she will buy my horror books just out of appreciation, you know, just to show support. So
But did she buy the cologne?
actually, I think she did.
She bought the fucking cologne? God.
Somebody bought the cologne. Crystal. So first of all, I think Rochelle did too. So Lisa, I'm going to mention these 3 ladies because they've all supported me in so many amazing ways, man. I mean, I'm talking. I was at a virtual signing the other day, and so one of them is Crystal Shunk, and Crystal actually, I met her in person at a signing. She paid to be able to do like a one-on-one Zoom meeting with me recently at a signing. That I didn't charge money, obviously, to do the Zoom stuff, but that was part of the signing. That's one of the things they were doing to do the virtual event, and she showed up for that, and that was really cool. So I've met her in person. I've met her husband. Crystal Shunk is just amazing. She's the one that I said doesn't really read horror, but she still buys the horror books. So she just bought a Foreign Evil like recently. Rochelle Penalto Jones, I said it wrong. Rochelle I've known from the very beginning too. I've met her at signings and stuff, and she's bought everything, supported me, and I think she's bought everything in ebook and paperback, and has bought multiples of paperbacks. I mean, she's just amazing. And then newer to me is Lisa Vital. I think it's Pena. I think it's supposed to have the Enye sign over it, but I don't think Facebook gives you that, so it might be Pena. Lisa Vital Pena. But she has bought, I mean, I've been sending paperbacks to her, signed paperbacks just constantly, because she's gone through and bought everything, and she just recently moved on to my motorcycle club stuff and bought all of that. So I want to say thank you to Lisa, Rochelle, and Crystal. You guys are amazing. Thank you for all your support. So that I got that out before I completely got kicked off with my internet. So.
That's awesome.
Carver.
And Carver, if you want me to add their pictures to the video stream, just go ahead and send them over.
Okay, I'll
awesome.
check with them. I don't know. So
that's awesome. You have such great readers and great fans, and they definitely seem like they're people that are dedicated to you and definitely loyal to you. So that's that definitely speaks to your character and your work. So congratulations on just having them as readers.
Awesome.
Roll on fucking clap.
I want to say thank you to Aaron and Dan because you guys are just great guys.
Oh, that's nice.
So now we're doing mailbag. You said right?
Yeah, we got time for one or maybe two.
Last time we got kicked out right when I reached into this, right?
Yeah, you went full mind carver and fucking.
I'm gonna reach deeper because I think. Okay, let's see. So this one. Ooh, so this is from our friend Andy Carroll.
Oh, hey, Andy.
All right. So for someone on a budget and wants to start writing, doesn't have a great computer or Microsoft Office or Mac, of course a pen and paper is the way to start writing. However, any advice on affordable or a good way to go about getting necessary equipment that has the capability to format your writing properly? We kind of just covered that in I think it was the last episode, right?
I think so.
Definitely the easiest way if you are on a budget and you can't afford to buy Office or Word or anything like that, Google Docs and Kindle Create. You can do both of those are free, and you will be able to type everything out. You'll be able to put everything on the docs, and you'll be able to go on Kindle Create and format all your stuff.
Yep.
I'm trying to laugh. My wife is crawling behind me, so she's not on camera. You can probably hear her laughing right now.
She's so cute. Isn't there one, where is she?
She's gone now. She's left.
Oh, boo. We went to meet her. Isn't there one like
Docs? Drew Stepik mentioned on one of his interviews that he does a lot of his writing while he walks in the morning on Google Docs and stuff. I don't know if I could actually pull that off, but I mean, like you said, it's free and you can do it from your phone. I mean, if you wanted to. So
yeah, and it's very similar to Word. Everything's very easy to use, and you can transfer all the documents. You could turn them into PDFs, whatever you want. And so if you're on a budget and you're trying to get started, and you just have a shitty old laptop with an internet connection, Google Docs, Kindle Create, and you can put out a paperback, hardcover, or ebook easily on Amazon.
Hell, you can do it
one like Word 365. Is that the same as Google Docs?
What is it?
Microsoft 365? No, that's not the same thing.
Google
you have
Docs
to pay
is
for Microsoft 365. So
yeah, Google Docs is strictly based on your Gmail account. So if you go on Gmail and you have like the 9 little dots on the top right corner, you click on that, scroll down to Docs, and it's pretty much looks like the Microsoft Word, almost like the homepage where you can create like a blank document, and you just do that, and you're ready to rock and roll. So Andy, great question on that. You guys have any other freebies or cheaper programs that you guys would use?
I think you hit it. I think you hit it, Daniel. That's the bare bones minimum, you know. And yeah, thanks, Andy, for sending the question.
All right, let's do another one from Michael J. Any of you guys Richard Lehman fans?
Oh, hell
I am. Yeah, I read Cuts, which I really liked. That was a really good slasher. The Cellar is another good one.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's a Beast House one.
One
yeah, that's
Rainy Night.
the first Beast one, and it's like he pulls no punches in that. Like he don't give a fuck. There's shit with kids in it. It's like
I gotta tell you, Endless Night was one of the most intense. At least the beginning of it, probably about the first half of Endless Night was intense. Man, have you guys read that one?
No, I think I have it. I bought a nice little collection recently, so I have a good amount.
Yeah.
What were you saying?
I like that one a lot.
Oh, there's one called One Rainy Night. That was really good.
Yeah. See, I've only read Funland and Endless Night, and I think I started The Island. I think I started at one point, but I haven't gone back to it. Yeah. But yeah, I like his stuff a lot. So
I've read a handful of them. I think probably my favorite one, and one of the better coming of age stories, is the Traveling Vampire Show. Traveling Vampire Show is fucking awesome. It's just a great coming of age story, and it's just a good book in general. So But yeah,
I've got that one
Funland's
paperback.
good.
I haven't read it yet.
I have
Yeah,
Funland,
oh, you
but
should.
I haven't read it yet. But I didn't hear any of you guys mention. Did you read Cuts, Roland?
I didn't read
I've
Cuts. No.
No.
I haven't.
That's a good slasher. Like if you just
Yeah.
want like a real like a fun slasher book with like crazy fucking characters, I recommend Cuts for sure.
Funland was the first one of his that I read, and Funland kind of threw me for a loop at first because I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't blah 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 blah. I wasn't expecting it to be like a coming of age story, and kind of it was.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that scary really, so I was trying to find the horror in it until it gets to a certain point, and then it's pretty brutal. It's just like,
Oh, nice.
I thought Funland was pretty cool.
That's a good one.
I'm kind of a newer layman fan. Like I didn't know much about him until recently, and I'm getting more and more into his stuff. So
Cool.
Please don't make me jump up and go get my collection. No, I won't.
I think we got time for one more, Carver, before we wrap up.
all right, let's see.
Yank it.
Yank what?
Ooh, that's a long one. Ray H. All right, hold on. This is a long one now.
Spectacles.
Loving the show, great chemistry and banter amongst you guys. It's giving us horror hounds a great insight into your work and excellent entertainment in doing so. So I've been thinking about how you individually approach your projects. Do you just start writing and let the story develop based around an initial thought or idea, or are your processes more methodical? Do you use mind maps or other methods? I know Aaron has mentioned using a storyboard. I can only imagine what's on it. Insight into your thought process and level of preparation would be interesting. So, yeah, so that's, I'm just trying to think how to break that down.
Who is that?
I'll start since mine
That's
is
Ray
probably-
H. I think it might be Ray Ho.
Probably.
Oh, Ray. Okay, Ray's awesome, by the way.
Yeah, he is. He's a
he-
big supporter. He's amazing.
I'm shocked that we haven't had it. It's so hard because we have to recognize a lot of people, like, and it's
yes.
like you have to pick. But like, fucking Ray could have been the first person we recognized. Quite honestly.
Yeah, I think it's read
I have
everything.
it written down too. Yeah, it's like it's hard to.
Yeah, Ray's fucking awesome. But I know, Roland, you said you wanted to talk.
Oh,
talk
yeah,
to this one.
Because probably mine is the simplest. Mine all revolves around an idea. I have an idea in my head, and I just sit and start writing, and just let the story develop. I think I have pretty good solid points that I know I want to hit on eventually, and I do wind up making it to those points. But for me, I just sit down, start writing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mentioned to Aaron earlier, I was saying how I was driving the other day and I saw a truck pulling a camper and I just got an idea and then like, I'm just going to run with it, but I kind of have a general idea where the story's going to go and stuff like that. So for the most part, mind maps, I don't think I've ever used a mind. At one point with, Google has that. Have you ever seen how Google has that kind of thing where you could connect the bubbles and shit to keep track of your ideas and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
I used something like that at one point when I was trying, but only because I was trying to do like a choose your own adventure type of thing, and it was just gonna be all over the
That
place.
would be
But,
fucking perfect for something like that. But I think
Yeah.
That's so funny. I wanted to do a horror choose your own adventure, but I just never got around to it. Is that what you were doing? A horror, Carver?
No, this was actually. I actually wanted to do something. It was on the romance side, but it wasn't really romance at all. It was like you're at work. It was from a female's point of view. You're at work. The boss is, you're tired of your boss's shit. It was going to be called Throat Punch and Vagina Kick. So,
Classic.
so I used to have
I love
a friend that would always be like, "I'm going to kick her right," and then she used the C word. I'm not going to say that on here because that offends a lot of people. But
you talk about cunt.
yeah,
I think he's referring to con.
Or come.
like I'm a throat puncher. So.
Hey,
So that was
Roland.
the idea behind it. Was
Yes.
like, what do you choose to do? Are you going to kick your boss in the?
Is it like a
Yeah.
choose your own cum shot like adventure kind of thing? Like
Hey.
Somehow, how do I feel like you're somehow going to put incest into this, Dan?
I wasn't gonna,
Every
but since
time.
you
About to
mentioned
go
it,
incest.
yeah, pick a sibling kind of thing for.
This is the
Oh.
perfect time for the incest part of the.
Hey,
It's not
Roland.
incest. It's West
Real
Virginia.
quick.
Choose
real
your own
quick.
adventure.
I had the same thing, and I have a concept for the it's a horror, choose your own adventure sort of thing. I do want to do that, but that's quite a project. Since you fucking have have always wanted to do that too. Maybe we'll talk about that sometime, like down the
yeah.
road. Because I feel like it would have to be something that I do with someone else. You know, you know what I mean? I just don't know that writing a fucking choose your own adventure by yourself.
It was helping me a lot. That Google whatever the hell, I don't know what it's called. Google something or other. But
Google Cox. Is Google Cox?
that was it, Daniel. That was it.
Well, so what? We're running out of time here. I think we'll say, Ray, it sounds like most of us will do a little bit of chapter planning, right? And I mean, like, I know Daniel's mentioned it, Carver's mentioned it. Sounds like Roland kind of runs with it, but you said you were kind of opening it up to more of some of that. And it depends for me. A lot of times I'll just have like a long list of bullet points, you know? And as I'm typing, as I complete a bullet point, I delete it. And then if there's other shit I think of as I'm writing, I add it in. And then sometimes, you know, you'll think of something you want to add in and be like, oh, this would be a good thing to foreshadow. And then you'll jump back up to an earlier chapter, pop a couple things in there. So that's sort of my writing process. And then, you know, I'll usually have it broken down into chapters with my more recent writing anyway. Earlier on, it was just a large list of bullets. And I think it works. If you just write it, you know, that's your best bet.
Yeah.
Have about a dozen bullets of general stuff, and then if you want to do sub bullets that go into that stuff, you can get more detailed. But like we said, right, you don't want to be spending all your time with this prep. Just get into the writing, you know, and then you're going to be much more successful that way, I think. But guys, anything else? I'm only doing it just because of time. I wanted to kind of wrap it up. But thanks, Ray, for the question. You're the shit, man. I've recognized him on my Evil Examined podcast because he listens to that as well. And he's just an excellent member of the horror community. We are very fortunate to have him as a reader.
Absolutely, yeah.
So guys, again, this is the Written and Read podcast. I'm horror author Aaron Beauregard, and you can find my shit on Amazon. There's a couple things I got on Godless. Feel free to reach out to me anytime if you want a signed copy. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. My new book, In the Hands of the Heathens, is out right now. And I got a bunch of shit coming up on tap. Son of the Slob should be being released in the next couple months. And that book's going to be a real big deal for me. And I think it's probably the best thing I've written so far. Daniel, what do you got?
So, Daniel J. Volpe, on Facebook, Daniel Volpe. Instagram, I just changed my Instagram handle, actually, so it's DJ Volpe Horror instead of DJ Volpe Author. Same handle under Twitter, which I've succumbed to the dark side of Twitter, so I'm on there. So, I guess...
Get ready to quit the writing business. Yeah.
Fucking tweet me, I guess, whatever the fuck it's called. DJ Volpe Horror on there. And just like Aaron... You can reach out to me, private message me, and my new book from D&T Publishing, A Gift of Death. If you like fucking vampires and heavy metal, you'll want to check this one out. So that should be out by the time this one airs. Carver?
Everywhere is Carver Pike on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff, Slasher. My books are wide now, all of them, so they're pretty much everywhere. Amazon, Godless, Google, Apple, Barnes & Noble, all that stuff. So you can find me there, carverpike.com. That's about it. Roland?
Hey, Roland Bursey Jr. You can find me on my website, rolandburseyjr.com. I have a website for $2.
Yo.
Amazon, I'm on Galas. Hit me up on Facebook, say hi. I'll say hi back. Yeah.
Awesome. Another good episode, guys. I think we scratched the surface as we cracked the top of the blood pool today, and we will fully submerge next week and finish with our detailed discussion. And guys, remember to send those questions to writtenandreadpodcast@gmail.com. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you want to see us visually and all the different graphics that come up with the videos. Or you can just listen to straight audio if you're on your drive home from the office or whatever. And that, you know, we're on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, all that good stuff. But we are the Written and Read podcast. Another episode in the books, guys. Great job. Thank you all for being here. And again, keep it 100% horror.